Buy an Intel NUC Barebones PC and get a limited edition t-shirt and in-game items for PlanetSide 2. Click now to learn more. Now I know there's been a lot of high-end graphics card stuff lately, and we've focused a lot on $500, $600 cards that most people can't afford. Now it's time to come back to reality. So with the recent price drops especially, GTX 760s are looking pretty appealing, and I can't think of many that are better than MSI's Hawk Edition. So it's clocked at 1.176 gigahertz. It's got 2 gigs of 6 gigahertz GDDR5 memory, just like pretty much any other GTX 760 would, and it has a very unique implementation as we've come to expect from Hawk cards over the last several years. So let's go ahead and get this baby opened up and find out what's inside. So first we've got some accessories, which hopefully I can figure out how to actually open here. There we go. So there's a quick user's guide, as well as a disk that you should throw away, a DVI to VGA adapter that you should throw away, V-checkpoint connectors. So those are for checking actual voltages right on the PCB using the V-checkpoints, as well as apparently a guide and some, oh cool, these are handy, 2 6-pin to 8-pin PCI Express adapters. Those are going in the handy stuff bin after this. All right, so after that, we have the card itself. So it supports all the standard GTX 760 stuff. So GPU Boost 2.0, dynamically adjusting the clocks according to power thresholds, temperature thresholds, and making sure that the fan speed stays under control. Game Stream, which is with any Kepler card, the ability to stream your games from your PC to an NVIDIA Shield or to an NVIDIA Shield or through your TV. Or to your TV through an NVIDIA Shield. So that's Game Stream and Shadow Play, which uses the onboard H.264 encoder to record your games locally or stream to twitch.tv with almost no performance hit. Although it should be noted that not all games are supported, yada yada, etc., but it's a great way to stream games as long as they are supported versus having there be a huge performance drop. All right, so let's talk about the cooler. Right there, my friends, are 2 100mm fans with their propeller blades, so they have that smoother plastic on the outside. They spin the other way upon startup to pull dust out of that massive cooler. So that's actually a 5 heat pipe cooler. There's 4 of them that come out the bottom, so you can see those 4 down there. And then there's an additional super pipe on the top, so that's an 8mm heat pipe that carries heat as far away from the GPU core as it possibly can towards the back of the card. They are claiming it runs up to 10 degrees Celsius cooler and up to around 16 decibels quieter. And while we were able to validate that it does run dramatically cooler than a reference card, we don't have a decibel meter, unfortunately, so we weren't able to validate that it runs quieter, but it does run extremely quietly. So I wouldn't be concerned about this card being loud. On the top, you find 2 8-pin PCI Express connectors. I would go ahead and say that that's probably totally unnecessary, but that does, in theory, allow this card to draw more power, therefore delivering more power to the GPU and other components, and in theory overclock better. In fact, we did get a slightly better overclock out of the GTX 760 Hawk compared to our reference card, which you'll see in the overclocking results and benchmarks at the end of this video. On the back of the card, we find a backplate. I kind of, was not that sold on backplates for a while, but I think I've started liking them again. They look quite nice, and this is kind of a first for MSI. It's the first time I've seen it, but a matte black PCB. The PCB on this card is absolutely gorgeous. We've seen a lot of dark brown PCBs trying to pass for black PCBs from MSI, and that is not what they've done here. There's a BIOS switch right here that goes from standard mode to liquid nitrogen mode, depending on what kind of crazy benchmarking you're doing on it, and they've completely redesigned the entire PCB, so it has a 6+2 phase power design. That is to say 6 phases for the GPU itself, 2 phases for the RAM, and nothing left of the original reference design. It's got a PCI Express 3.0 16X connector down here. It has 2 SLI fingers at the top, supporting up to 3-way SLI, and then over on the I/O side, you got 2 DVI ports, HDMI, and DisplayPort, so that's full support for NVIDIA 3D Vision Surround with 1 additional auxiliary display. It uses military class 4 components, so that means driver MOSFET, so that's a driver and a MOSFET in one unit, and then they've also got their copper MOSFETs for faster heat dissipation, high C caps, and finally their dark caps, which are aluminum capacitors. They're claiming up to a 10-year lifespan or something ridiculous like that. Software-wise, it supports their triple over voltage feature, so they have a few cards that they kind of slip under the NVIDIA green light sort of blanket of not too much overvolting and all that stuff, so you can overvolt the GPU, the RAM, as well as the PLL, so you can really fine-tune your overclock, and that's all supported through MSI Afterburner, which around here at Linus Tech Tips is our favorite NVIDIA GeForce graphics card overclocking utility. Remember, you can use MSI Afterburner on any graphics card as long as it doesn't have a weird VRM solution that's not supported by it, so not just on MSI cards. Although if you want to support the guys that build great utilities, then you might want to buy an MSI card so that, that all those good things can happen. All right, so performance. We used our standard test bench with our 6-core processor, 12 gigs or 16 gigs of RAM, I think, are running on it these days, some SSD, and anyway, here are the benchmark results. So you can see here that our 760 Hawk Edition does slightly outperform our standard card. All of this while, in my personal opinion, looking absolutely fantastic, being extremely quiet, and running extremely cool. We only ran a few games because there's not really a whole lot to say about it. It should be noted, guys, that we do overclock all of our cards. So at stock, this card will outperform the reference card by a little bit more, but once you overclock both of them, the gap does tend to narrow a little bit if you aren't doing anything extreme on the cooling side or the overclocking, tweaking, and tuning side. Remember, guys, overclocking is always luck of the draw, so there's no guarantee that your Hawk will overclock better than a standard card or that your standard card will overclock at all, but it tends to be that the better designed cards with beefier VRM and more power and all that stuff do tend to overclock a little bit better. One more thing I missed here at the back of the card, those are those V checkpoints, so you can actually check the exact voltages of various components with a multimeter rather than relying on software tools. And I think that is pretty much it. Thank you for checking out my unboxing and review of the GTX 760 Hawk Edition from MSI. Don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos. Like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it, and leave a comment if there's anything you really feel very desperately that I should know.